Hi there, it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. This is the jar set from the November release of AlinaCrafts on AliExpress. She has included a picture of the made up product, what it looks like, which is super helpful, but I'm going to go slightly different today with this one. And I'm going to start off by creating a background. So I have some chipped sapphire, some seedless preserves, and some blueprint sketch Distress Oxide inks. Then I also have a tiny wee masked circle down here, and I'm just going to pop that onto some watercolor cardstock. Then I'm just going to roughly pop down these three colors of ink, and then I will come back and kind of blend them in a little bit better once I have the main colors down. So I just go back and forth, and I'm not too worried about the top of the card because the jar is not going to reach the top of the card, so that's okay. I'm also including some black soot to make it look like a nighttime sky. That's the idea behind these colors. And I'm all finished, happy with the blending, so I will put that aside and let it dry for a little while. Here is another set. This is an awesome die set. Now this is quite a big stocking, but I did like some of the little dies that came with it. So I like the little Santa and reindeer and the little snowbank and there's snowmen and trees and things on it. So I'm going to cut that one out of some white glitter cardstock and the Santa and reindeer out of some black glitter cardstock. Now, I definitely recommend that you kind of mix and match your stamps or die sets or whatever you have. There's no reason why you shouldn't take bits from lots of different ones to create your own project, and that's kind of what I've done here. I really love these little reindeer and Santa, and the snowbank was kind of just perfect for what I needed. So I am going to add a little bit of Picket Fence, which is just a white acrylic paint, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to it to create some kind of nighttime splatters, a little bit like snow maybe. You could also use some white gesso and just add a little bit of water. That works really well as well. And I'm just using a really small paintbrush because I want the little specks of snow to be really small, and it doesn't matter that I kind of get little splashes and things. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to dry it with my heat tool so that it goes nice and quick, and then that is kind of the background done and dusted. So now I'm going to do some die cutting, and I'm just going to wiggle those little bits out of the middle of the stamp set. You don't really need wire cutters, you can kind of just bend them and they come out really nicely. And I'm also going to bend off the top. I want to keep that part in the middle for now, and in fact I will end up having to go back later on because I didn't die cut everything I needed before I removed it. But I have die cut the jar, so now I have the inside of the jar and kind of the outline of the jar. So that will go together nicely still. And then I want to create a card base. And I'm going to use the jar die to create it. So I need to flip that piece out of the middle there, and it just breaks out nicely. And what I need to do is make sure that the very top of the jar is poking above, just above the fold line for my card. So I'm going to use a little bit of low-tack tape just to tape it in place when I run it through my die cutting machine. And this is 110 pound Nina Solar white paper that I'm using as a card base. I need a nice sturdy card base because this is a kind of a smaller card that would go nicely with a gift I was giving for Christmas. And then from here I'm going to use some of Alina's black 3mm fun foam that she now has in her shop, and I have taped back the inside of the jar back into the outline of the die. But before I do that, this is also Alina's double-sided adhesive sheets. These come in really big sheets, and I have just trimmed some down. It doesn't have to be neat. I'm just adding them onto both sides of the black foam, running it through my die cutting machine, and it still cuts it out perfectly through all of those layers. So it's really, really good. And now you can see I can just kind of pop out the middle, and I have my foam sorted for the outline. This is some acetate here, and the white bit behind it is the tissue paper. It just has to keep it nice and clean in the package from the package that I have, and I am cutting some acetate out. All I need is the outside line, so again I remove that inside part of the jar, And we're almost kind of up to the part where I'm going to start assembling everything. So that I know that I need to put this black foam down first, so I'm just going to remove one side of that adhesive that we placed on before we die cut it, and this should fit perfectly on top of my card base. Because the outline of the foam is quite thin and skinny, I just kind of guide it around the outside as I go, and that way I can make sure that it's on straight with the edges of the card. Now, there is one thing that I almost forgot to do when I was thinking about the background of my card, and that is remember that I put that tiny wee mask in the background, and now I'm going to pull that off, and this is my moon. So I've put down a tiny little bit of squeezed lemonade distress oxide ink. I use the Reinker to pop it down, and I have some water on my acrylic block as well, and I'm just making a really, really light yellow color. And I'm just going to kind of wash some yellow over the moon. It kind of looks like shadows a little bit and things, and it just, to me, it makes the moon kind of look not quite so flat. I often add a little bit of water first over the whole moon and then add in a little bit of the yellow. Then to adhere down everything, I'm just kind of seeing where I want it to go on the card, and I'm just using some double-sided tape. You could definitely use liquid adhesive here, but I feel like the double-sided tape gets the job done nice and quick, and I knew I would want to cut off the pieces that were overhanging my project, so having something instantly stick down was just nice and handy. So I'm just going around with a pair of scissors to trim off the excess, because I also added another little snowbank on just to cover up the base of that card. And then again, I've used some wider double-sided tape. This is Alina's double-sided tape, and it's extremely sticky. And here is where I want to put on my reindeer, but I feel terrible about this, but I need to cut off one reindeer because it just doesn't fit my project. So Santa just has two wee reindeer pulling his sleigh, and I'm going to put it straight through the middle of the moon. I did actually have some stickered adhesive on the back of that black glitter already, that black glitter card. So that was kind of handy, but I hadn't realized that before I started. Anyway, I'm pouring in just a few of the little tiny white caviar beads from Alina's shop, and then taking off the release paper, adding on the piece of acetate, and that will hold in all my little shaker beads. And then from the top there, I just put a little bit of double-sided tape around the edges, and I've adhered that down over top of the acetate. My card is nearly finished. I just want to finish off the top, so I die cut the lid from some dark grey cardstock, and I'm going to put that tiny wee part there that also die cuts out back in, and then with a little bit of black and white twine, I am just going to tie a nice bow, although my cheat here is that I actually just tie a double knot, cut off the ends, and then I tie a bow separately and stick that on top. Anyhow, that is my card for today. I just want to remind you that on the 11th of the 11th, AliExpress has a big sale, and Alina will have items in her shop for sale as well. And I hope you enjoyed this card. I will see you in the next video. Links are in the description box below. Thanks, bye!